What was basic training like?
Hard. I was 17, left home for the first time, went to Great Lakes Training Station in just north of Chicago, and it was cold, very cold, and you had to wear your uniform just so, and that meant the big collars on your peacoats had to be down, not up around your ears.
Even if it was cold.
Oh, it was cold, dear.
Yeah.
But you just kept it that way. And you had to march. You took double time. Worst thing I remember, two bad things that happened to me in boot camp, which is no big thing, but fire school. You go in and they start fires in these concrete buildings, and you do go in and put them out. Well, you get wet, and it's like zero. And so you crinkle and crack when you come out of there. You're just an icicle. That was bad. I remember that, because I thought I was going to maybe have some problem with some ears. And then we had to go through gas mask training. And so we went into this tank with the gas. And sure enough, you could breathe. Then they said, take your finger and put it in the side of the mask, and so you could whiff what you weren't catching. Well, some of us were dumb enough to do that. I thought I'd die before I got out of there. Dumb, you just don't do those things. But I did. And, so that's what training was, just training. They taught you to obey orders without question. Do what you're told to do and do it now. Pretty simple. That's what it's all about.
When did you enter the service?
I entered in December 1944.
And what was your day-to-day life like?
What?
Your day-to-day life?
Well, that'll certainly depend on where you were. I wound up on my ship was a net tender. And you'll have to look that up to see what that is.
Okay.
It's a ship they just cropped the bow off of it and made it straight like a triangle, flat triangle, and had a couple of horns sticking up with pulleys on them. And we took care of the nets that closed the harbors and the bays, the submarine nets and so forth, and to keep other enemy ships out. And you would open it for yours to go in and out and close them to keep anyone else out. And so on signal duty, I was on the bridge most of the time. And signaling was my forte. You'll probably get to that.
Did you ever see any action?
No, I missed it. The only action I saw were 2 typhoons. That was action enough for me.
That would have been terrible.
We were rammed 3 times in Buckner Bay, Okinawa, and we had to leave. There were 52 ships left on the beaches, small craft. The big craft were okay, they went out to sea. Small craft. We were small. We had 36 people, 4 of them were officers, so it was just a little bigger than a canoe. But we went out into that dang typhoon, and the waves were unbelievable. It's not like what you see here on the lakes and so forth. Those things were mountainous. You'd see something up there coming down on you, and then you go up and you look down and see what there was. That was the worst I went through, actually. But see, when I left 2 days after the war was over, then I went to all kinds of names you don't need to write down. One's not even here with us anymore. I think it was blown out of the ocean. And I finally wound up in the Philippines, Guam. I saw the Missouri coming back with the peace treaty on it. It was in Guam. And we went out I drank coffee and watched that thing go by. I went and got another cup, still watching it go by. It was a big, monstrous battleship. And we were close enough to it to see it, all of it as it went by. And it was an interesting thing. And on Okinawa, I went ashore, and they had paths cleared. And you had to stay on on those paths. If you got off, you could get booby trapped. You didn't go in any caves. They were booby trapped. You could just walk the path that they had lined out, and generally that took you to the PX or someplace where you needed to go, and then you followed that path back and got on your little boat that took you back to your ship. And I got a Japanese rifle when I was there, but they took the bolt away. And I got it shipped all the way home. Got it home, of course, without the bolt. Kept it for about 15, 20 years, and it was just getting, it's such poor workmanship. It was, the stock was dried out and cracked, and the bayonet was just hanging loose on there, more or less, and I took it to the dump, threw it away. It's worth several $100s today if I had it even in this shape, but I'm not claiming to be Bright Hill. I'm some relation to you. Terrible. Ask me then.
Alright, did you have any close friends in the war that you kept in contact with after the war?
Oh yeah. But unfortunately, I don't know of one that's still alive. One fellow from Omaha, Dean McCandless. We were buddies. You know, you have a buddy, almost everyone does. That you go every place together and do things together and so forth. He was my buddy. And we separated at Okinawa. He went on another ship, and I stayed on this one. He went home, and I had to stay there. But our ship was a regular speedboat. It took us 21 days from Okinawa to Midway. We never saw anything in between. Just jump, over, rowing. To get there, 21 days. And so that was interesting. Yeah, you drank coffee and you smoked cigarettes. That's what you did. Or you stood watch. And there was nobody to signal at, so you just stood up there. However, in the war, signalmen were very important because the enemy can't intercept flags and light. And you could, they had some great big old 36-inch spotlights, and you could flash those up on a bank of clouds, and they could see way over the horizon, and you could talk to one another. And they had like those Venetian blinds with a handle on them, and you could open the light and close it off. And you just use Morse code. And the light is only about as tenth as fast as radio. The radioman can hear, you can hear a fluorescent light hum that's going off and on. But you can't see it flitter off and on. You can hear, and you can hear radio dits and dots faster than you can see them, so it's much slower. And then we had what they call a Navy flag bag. There were 65 different flags in this flag bag. One had a ring on one corner and a snap on the other. And you had a halyard, went up to the cross arm, and you would, as they called out the flags, you'd snap them on, and they'd pull up, and you'd snap on another one, snap on another one, snap on another one. And they'd run those up on the yard arm. Usually those were initiated by the leader of the column, or however you were going. And when that went up, everyone behind copied that code. And there was a code book. And put those together, those flags together, meant something. And to make it simple, maybe it was just going to be a 45-degree left or port turn. And they would maybe want you to all turn at the same time, all go this way instead of going in a column. And that those flags would tell them. And when they're ready to do that, the fellow that run it up first would snap it down from his yard arm. And everybody else would do that at the same, all the way back through. Snap that down, you can get it down in 5 seconds. And everybody make this turn at the same time. And today it's all handled with computers and all that razzmatazz, but we didn't have that. So that was what I did. That was my job. Most everything was light. We did about everything but light. Semaphore, some, not too often. Light bag when you were with a group of ships. So that's how it works. That's what I did. And waving those things. There used to be, I don't suppose you remember the Lucky Strike cigarettes, LSMF.
Oh, yeah, I remember
Lucky
those.
Strike, make
Yeah.
fine tobacco or something like. We had to live signalman make fine targets. 'Cause we would have flags on the interior running the semaphore in. And I still remember how to do that, but I can't read it anymore. I can remember how to make the letters, characters. What's the next question? See, I ramble on.
That's okay. How did you stay in touch with your family during the war?
Letters. There was no other way. And that's, excuse me a minute.
Okay.
Wonder where my envelope is. Had it around here, and then I think I took it someplace. Where would I have taken it here? Would I have taken it here? No, I wouldn't have. I have a reason for that. Oh, Marky. I've been spending my way for 3 weeks.
It's moving your way.
You know that envelope's got the pictures in it? Excuse me.
Okay.
You must have found it.
I'll get these out because I want to show them to you later.
Okay.
Why you brought this up, that you asked about how you stayed in touch. Well, they would write a letter to you, to the postmaster of the South Pacific or something. And so the first thing when you pull into a port someplace, someone would run in on what we call an LCBP, a small powered flat bottom boat, and go and check and see if there was any mail. My boat was the USS Chinkapin. They were all named after trees. And if there was any mail for the Chinkapin, then they'd bring it back and they'd have a mail call. And so you would hope you got a letter from home. And that there was a place then he would take your mail with him when he went to pick up yours. And so it would go out and you could send a letter home. But you might keep it in your locker for a week before you could, or 2 weeks or something, before you could send it and before you receive it. So I made this honor flight to Washington, D.C.
Recently.
And part of that on the first night was a mail call. And there were 26 of us, and some got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 letters, and I only got one. But inside that big old manila envelope was 53 others. And it brought a tear. It was just wonderful. All my nieces and nephews and relatives and sons and so forth sent me a card. And people that I haven't seen for a long time sent me some kind of a letter. And my ex-boss, I haven't seen for 15 years, sent me a letter. And that was a great thing. So mail calls were very important. That's what kept people in contact.
What did you do? Oh, just kidding. That was way far. Do you recall any like funny or unusual events that happened, like just during the war? Anything that sticks out?
Wasn't fun times. I don't get. I'm sure I had a good time. Some of those things you don't want to hear about.
The typhoons.
Huh?
We'd be interested in typhoons.
Well, yeah, the typhoons. I told her about those. They're just big monstrous waves, and we had winds up to 110 miles an hour, and it's terrible. You just don't want, that's, had guys that been in fights, been in typhoons, wasn't sure they wouldn't rather be in another fight. But interesting things, I'll give you a little, I don't know if you want to write that or not.
I don't have to write it.
We got it back, we got this thing home. And it was in such bad shape that we took it to Lake Union in Seattle, which is downtown, someplace inside Seattle. And tied up to the dock and began stripping everything out of it. Well, that lake is subject to the tide. So the water level goes up and down. And we have a gangplank that you walk up and down to get onto the pier or back down. Well, we had what they call a gunnel, which is a rail about 2 foot tall, 2.5 foot tall around most of the ship. And that would just ride even with the wharf or pier. So we just step up on that and jump over 2 foot, 3 foot to the pier and go on about our way, and didn't have to go up that gangplank. Well, I did that, but it had been raining and it was wet, and I didn't get there. I went, phew. Now let me tell you how the sewer system works on that. And I'll let you guess where I fell. And I was in that and out of there before I even got wet.
No.
But there's they have these great big old like telephone poles between the pier posts, columns, whatever you call them. And I fell between two of those and that post that was laying in the water, and that's good because I was protected. If I'd have been between the ship and that post and then it rolled, I'd have been jelly. Yeah, that was one of the dumb things I did. They didn't classify us way up there close to the top. And it should be classified up there. But no, most of the time it was boredom. You just, you drank lots of coffee, you smoked lots of cigarettes. That's what you did. There was nothing else to do. Play some cards. We could buy nothing. We could buy cigarettes and a nickel a pack. We could buy toothpaste and razor blades. That's it. If we ran out of clothes or needed dungarees or skivvies or something, we had to wait till we got into a bay someplace. And then try to either scavenge some off of a big ship, a battleship or a carrier, or maybe if they had a supply depot on the island or wherever we were, you could go in and they'd take your order and bring them out to you. We couldn't buy anything, so we would, when it was payday, we'd fill out our chip. We were paid, what, $21, $25, $30 a month? I don't remember. And I get it for $15 and had plenty of money. And it just built up. I had $600 or $700 when I got back, just because there wasn't anything to do. Wasn't anything to spend it on. See, I missed the fighting, so if you wanted to talk to somebody that really had
I'm okay with that.
had the war experiences, I'm not the one.
It's okay. Do you remember when your service ended? Like the date?
Yeah, I can't remember the date, but it was September 46.
And what did you do after the war? Like the days and weeks afterward?
Went to school. Went to work. Didn't like to work. Changed jobs. Found out I couldn't do it. Went back to school. So you need to get that schoolwork out of the way first. It's lots better. Where are you going?
I go to Augusta.
Augusta
High school.
High School?
Yeah, I'm in high school.
Huh. You're a senior then.
I'm a sophomore.
In high school?
Yeah.
Boy. Sophomores when I went to high school were just little girls with pigtails. Not grown up young ladies.
Did you join any veteran organizations?
Yes, American Legion.
And what did they do? Like, did you do anything with them?
Yes, worked with the Skyriders Drum and Bugle Corps for 15 years.
Worked with what?
Skyriders Drum and Bugle Corps.
They're famous. They're very, very good.
Yeah, the best we did was 11th in the nation. It was sponsored by the American Legion, and then we would have a stand and help usher at the fairgrounds with the night shows. We'd usher there, or as part of helping the Skyriders, which is sponsored by the Legion, and called bingo for about 5 or 6 years for the Skyriders, all by the American Legion, held up by, or supported by the American Legion.
Have you been honored recently from your service? Like,
Well,
Yeah.
yes and no. That's why I brought out the pictures. When I made this trip to Washington, D.C. on the honor flight, which was a great thing, and you know, I have given away I got to lay the wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, which was probably the greatest honor I've had. There were 4 of us. They picked the 4 prettiest guys. Well, maybe it's the only 4 that could make 12 steps up and back. Maybe that's what it was. This is the captain of the guards at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, shaking my hand. Here they walk, guarding the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. This guy, that goes 24/7, 365. And that day was 95 degrees, and I like to say if you'd have taken a deep breath, you'd have drowned. It was awful. And so they were changing them every 30 minutes. These guys train for 4 months. Then they get a 2-month trial. And if they can do it, then they get to wear a patch that says that blue patch up there says Honor Guard. And so after we laid the wreath, the 4 of us, the 2 of us in front had 2 hands on this one and 2 hands on the other. And the sergeant led us back, like they do the president, you know. And we hung it on the little hook and stepped back. Found out that you can't do an about face in tennis shoes.
yeah, that would be hard.
So we just walked back to this line, and then we stood at attention and saluted while they played taps. And then we went about face and went back up the steps where we'd come from. And to me, it was the biggest honor. Here we are saluting, and you'll see the bugler.
Oh, is that the guy with the trumpet thing?
Yep. Playing taps. They do that every time they change a guard. I assume. We only done it once. I'm just assuming. But this was a big thing for me. And you'll watch from here on Memorial Day or Veterans Day, and you'll see a picture. Every president does that. And so if it's good enough for the president, I guess it's good enough for me. That was a great time. So honors, would you call that an honor? Because I served, but there were people there that were, the youngest was 84, the oldest was 96. There were 7 or 8 in wheelchairs. One guy could not walk at all. And he got every place we went. He was the first one on the bus and the first one off. See, we all had guardians. can't go without a guardian. This is my oldest son, who was my guardian.
Oh, it looks just like you.
Yeah, and Steve wrote to my other sons and says, this picture makes me look just like my dad. Scary, isn't it? His wife, it's free for the veteran. It's $700 for the guardian. And so my daughter-in-law gave Steve this trip for his 60th birthday,
Wow.
for us to go to Washington together. And so we did that, and it was just a short period of time, but we had a good time, and it was a highlight of time. The rest of the time,